Now, at the time of recording this, there's a lot going on. There's elections. I just watched the Trump Joe Rogan thing, all 3 hours of it, believe it or not. There's social media stuff happening, so I think of Twitter's response to Joe Rogan's thing. There's work, right? There's the day-to-day. There's just a lot going on right now. And I would encourage you, just for this short video, to use this as a time to sort of unplug from a lot of that stuff. Just disengage from the distractions. And I would encourage you just to enter into something a little bit more meaningful, a little bit more sacred, and just look at this as sort of like a breath of fresh air from your normal day-to-day life, okay? I think from that place, you'll be in a great place to, I think, accept some of the things I'm trying to say today. So what we'll look at in this brief moment is just how to find your calling, okay? What a calling is, what that actually means. So because it's short, I've included the readings down below, but I'm just going to go ahead and read the last reading that the church gives us, okay, in the gospel reading. So this comes from the book of Mark. I'll just read it to you, okay? As Jesus was leaving Jericho with his disciples and a sizable crowd, Bartimaeus, a blind man, the son of Timaeus, sat by the roadside begging. On hearing that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he, the blind man, began to cry out and say, "Jesus, son of David, have pity on me." And many rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he kept calling out all the more, "Son of David, have pity on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called the blind man, saying to him, "Take courage, get up. Jesus is calling you." So he, being the blind man, threw aside his cloak, sprang up, and came to Jesus. Jesus said to him in reply, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man replied to him, "Master, I want to see." Jesus told him, "Go your way, your faith has saved you." Immediately he received his sight and followed him on the way. There's a quote in here I want to just camp out on for this brief moment. It'll sort of be the aim or goal of this video, this engagement that we have together. Let's borrow the blind man's language and just kind of put it on us for a second. Let's identify with the blind man. Master, I want to see. Let's just camp out there for our time, okay? Master, I want to see. Now, you can read this sort of upon first, reading and just go, okay, this is a story about the Son of God, Jesus, healing a blind man, and it's a great miracle. And okay, Jesus is a miracle worker. Okay. Again, I asked you to remove distractions and go into a deeper, more sacred, more meaningful, approach here. So just continue along that line, okay? Yes, that's what Jesus is doing. But we know that there can be much more profound wisdom taken from physical healing of what Jesus is doing. So there's always a deeper spiritual meaning to these stories, right? These stories really happen, but what's going on here? Yes, he gave this blind man his sight. But the deeper spiritual meaning, okay? Let's identify with the blind man. Master, I want to see, okay? We aren't all, physically blind, but spiritually speaking, we all could be blind, okay? So what does it mean by this whole deeper spiritual meaning? Let's identify and say, let's just assume we can't see, or maybe this could help us in some meaningful way. Why are we blind? Are we blind? This question we can sort of take on and identify. Let's take that a step further, right? There's physical blindness, there's spiritual blindness. Just very practically speaking, what do we do with our days? What is our vision? What's our mission in life? What's our calling? I'll come right out the gate and say the reason why you might be struggling with a lot of these things, what your vision is, what your mission is, what you're supposed to be doing throughout your day. Is your vocation right? Am I a good husband, daughter, father? All these things. It's because you lack calling, okay? I think that's the central theme of this text, is how to find your calling, okay? So there's calling, which is the deepest meaning of this text. Behind it is sort of your mission, why you exist, okay? Right before that is the vision for what you're being called to, and right before that is just a simple awareness, okay? So how do we normally go about having a calling, okay? I think the first is to sort of pick up our own vision or mission or purpose in life, to go, what do you want to do? What do you love? What's your purpose? What's your vision? What's your mission? And this is more than just a mission statement on your life, or I was put on this earth to do this thing. It's more than that. It's more than, I believe I'm valuable in my work or in my vocation in some way. What I'm trying to get at is, generally speaking, what we normally do is we come up with our own vision or our own mission or our own calling or our own purpose. In other words, it comes from us. We paint it. We are the ultimate God of our own universe, and so we create it. Okay, there's that sort of move there. That might be why you're blind. The other is just, if you don't have the luxury to think like that, maybe you're in survival. It's like, dude, Blake, I'm not even thinking about what my vision, my mission, my calling is. I'm just trying to get through the day. I've got many kids, and I'm just trying to keep them alive. There's, maybe stress of your work or what you're trying to do for money. You're just trying to pay the bills. You're just trying to get ahead. You're just trying to keep the lights on, right? So this is more of a survival thing. But I think if you take one of these two approaches or anything in between, if you look at the first one, which is, I am going to take hold of my life, my mission, my vision, my purpose, whether you take that or I'm just trying to survive, I'm just trying to live day by day, really underneath all of that is this longing for freedom. If you're in the survival mode, I'm just trying to pay the bills, I'm just trying to keep the lights on, right? I don't even have time to think about my vision. What you're really saying is, as soon as I get that all sorted, then I'll have the freedom to figure out what my life's all about, of what I'm supposed to be doing. On the other hand, if you're living in this whole, this is my vision, this is my purpose, this is my mission, right, of what I'm trying to do with my life, you're really operating under the basic assumption that if you do that, and if you accomplish those things, or if you are living in that state of being, you will have freedom of expression of who you are. Okay? Either way, this is this longing for freedom. I would say that the pain of survival, or the maybe pursuit of your vision and mission, it exists because you lack calling. You see, in the first way, you are the one painting your own life, okay? Just here's what it is. I'm going to design it and paint it and craft it and look at it and go, this is what I want to do. In the survival thing, it's being so inundated with the day-to-day, and you're still thinking that you are the one that's supposed to create the vision and mission for your life. But what am I alluding to? What is happening in this gospel reading? Well, the blind man's being called by Jesus. Master, I want to see. It's not, I want to see, therefore I'm going to see for myself. It's a calling, okay? Let me just be radically and explicit with this. We need to be called, okay? We don't need to be making up our own vision, our own mission and purpose in life. We don't need to be surviving day to day. We need to just tune in and go, are we being called by God, okay? We need to be called by God to something. Yes, maybe. But in this reading, what is it? We need to be called by God to someone. We need to be called by God to Himself. That's what true calling is, okay? Not being called to a specific vision, mission, or purpose. Not quite yet. But called to someone in the person of Jesus, okay? So what's kind of the steps that we see here in order to get this spiritual vision, to get this spiritual calling, this purpose, right? How to find your true calling. First, you need to admit your blindness. And this is what we see in this reading. The blind man knows he's blind, right? He's a beggar, which there's undertones that a blind beggar in society is, the reason why he's like that is because he's a sinner, or his parents were sinners or something like this. So it's sort of this unclean approach that society puts on him, right? So it's this admission of blindness, okay? Now, spiritually speaking, what does that mean, okay? It means that you need to admit that your plans, your vision, your purpose, or your survival mechanisms, I'm just trying to get through day to day, all this stuff, all that it is, it's admitting that you can see and that you can get through life by yourself and that you have a vision for yourself and you can create it and it's all coming from you. But really what you need to do is let go of your vision, your mission, your purpose, all of that. So just let go of that and go, honestly, I can't see. I am blind. And what do you need to do? You need to do what this blind man does. Throw your cloak aside is what happens here. He threw his cloak aside, sprang up, and came to Jesus. What is that? That's a letting go of your pursuits. So it's acknowledging that you can't do it by yourself. It's acknowledging that you can't even come up with your own plans, right? But if you try to pursue those things, you'll most likely fail or run into roadblocks, right? All these things. But if you're being called by Jesus, if you're being called by God to something greater, something bigger than your plans, you have to admit you're blind and you have to let go of your own plans. You need to throw your cloak aside, okay? Get rid of your plans, get rid of your vision, get rid of your thoughts, right? And then what? Quote, take courage, get up, Jesus is calling you. It takes courage to follow Jesus. Why? Because you're letting go of all these previous plans and experiences, all these things, okay? Now, okay, I'm speaking very theoretically. I just want to get a little bit more personal. You know, I've experienced this to some degree in my life, okay? I remember just one moment in my life. I remember being on the plane back from, I think it was JFK to fly to San Diego after a series of weeks and weekends in New York City. And I remember being brought to tears on the plane, and my wife kind of leans over and goes, why are you crying? And I couldn't for the life of me explain why I was overwhelmed with such emotion. Now, there's a lot of context here for what I'm about to say, but I just remember being at such a loss for words. And for me, that's blindness, is when I don't know what to say and I don't know how to connect what I'm saying to my feelings. That's my spiritual blindness. I looked to her and I said, I think we're supposed to be in New York City. A year and a half later, we were living in New York City. Now, there's a whole story to that. But if you were to ask me, day one of living there, so what brought you to the city? You know, normally what people say is, well, a job or something like this. But for me, it was, I really feel called here. And for me, it was a calling by God. And there were just kind of evidence after evidence after evidence that this was the right thing to do. After feeling that calling and moving forth in that calling, just boom, 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 domino after domino of confirmation of this calling. Another one is I've had countless spiritual directors, family, friends, clients, people close to me. Every time I light up and talk about proclaiming wisdom or Christ in a secular culture, or bridging the gap of a Protestant or secular divide, or a Protestant and Catholic divide, or bringing wisdom or infusing wisdom into the marketplace, every time I talk about these things, I've always had people go, that's your mission, that's your calling. And it's been a sort of tractor beam of attraction for me to go, I think Jesus is calling me into that more and more, and I need to sacrifice more and more of my desires to pursue this calling, right? Another maybe last example is fatherhood. That's not something I necessarily planned out. That's something I've been called into, and as I'm about to have a second kid literally any day now, I've realized that my calling is really to be a great father, right? And so there's massive implications of that, okay? So all three of those examples for me personally, it was a massive sacrifice, okay? And I think one principle we can pull from this gospel reading is that, okay, you can go about making a plan for your life, saying, this is what I'm going to do, this is my vision, this is my sight, this is my mission, this is my calling, and write it up and plan it all out, reverse engineer it. Or you can just live day to day, etc., etc. But it's these moments where you feel called and go, this is really my calling. What is the ask from God to listen to his calling and pursue the calling? Real calling always feels like death. Okay, that's a dramatic way to put it, but A more subtle approach is it always feels like a sacrificing. Taking off one's cloak, throwing it aside, letting go of your plans, letting go of your attachments, of the things that you thought you were going to do, letting go of your survival, all of these things, and going, I'm blind. And as you hear his calling of what you really need to be doing, it will feel like sacrifice. It'll feel like death. You will be called into death, okay? Okay, that's depressing. Blake, I thought you said that how to find your calling. The calling's supposed to be exciting, your vision, your mission, and what am I supposed to be doing, like my purpose, all that stuff. Right. That's what the world tells you. But I'm here to, again, I'm trying to remove the distractions, go into something more sacred, more meaningful. What this text is saying is that to find your true calling, your real purpose, your vision, your mission life, and you need to be called by God to something, yes, but most likely to him. And all of those moments will feel like a death. Okay, how are we going to move into that? Well, I want you to be encouraged because God doesn't, notice, he doesn't call you up to him saying, okay, child, come to me, for I am calling you. And then, okay, what do we need to do? Well, we bring our plans, our strategies, our survival, our day-to-day, and go, okay, God, help me with this. I'm going to climb up the ladder there. No. In fact, he asks you to remove these things, and he's calling you into a death, okay? What does he do? He doesn't ask you to rise up to the occasion. Rise up, Jesus is calling you. Take courage. Come up and climb the ladder. No, what does he do? God actually comes down in the person of Jesus, okay? So in the second reading, which I've linked to down below, it says this in the book of Hebrews. It says, in the same way, it was not Christ who glorified himself, climbing up the ladder, as it were, to becoming a high priest, but rather the one who said to him, and this is the Father speaking to the Son, you are my Son, this day I have begotten you. Okay. Christ's calling. Think about what his calling was. What was Christ's calling? Was it to heal a blind man? For sure. Was it to perform miracles? 100%. Was it to fulfill prophecy? Yes. But if you were to put a stamp of what is Christ's calling in his life, his purpose, his vision, his mission, his calling by his Father was to go right to the cross, was to go right to be pinned to two pieces of wood. And in the garden, what is he doing? He's asking the Father, can you take my vision and sight and my calling, my purpose of what you've called me to, and have it be fulfilled in some other way? And the Father says, no, I've called you to death. I've called you to death on a cross. This is your purpose. This is your mission. This is your calling. This is your vision. This is what I want you to do. And he says, not my will, but your will be done. That is an ultimate submission to God the Father's calling in his life. You see what's going on there? Jesus was called by his Father to die, so that we might be called by the Son, Christ, to live. Because if we go on and say, I'm going to make a name for myself, I'm going to pursue my own passions, my vision, my mission, my purpose, all this stuff, and not live in survival, and I'm just going to do all this with God's help, it'll cosmically go against how calling works. Rather, if we live into our calling, which is the Lord asking us to deny ourselves, to let go of our vision, our mission, our purpose, to not worry so much about the day-to-day, to really, the real calling always feels like a death, a sacrifice of oneself. If we enter into that, it's most likely going to dishearten us. But it won't if you realize that Christ himself paid that to the ultimate degree. His true calling, his pure and true mission was to be pinned to a cross and to die and to be sacrificed for us. He did that so that when we go and make plans and try to survive the day-to-day and try to hear his calling, we can enter into these moments of I think he's calling me to sacrifice myself in this way. I think he's calling me to move to New York. I think he's calling me into fatherhood. I think he's calling me into my mission, right? You can do all of these great sacrificial things that require you to die to yourself. You can do all of that because you can look to your Savior on the cross, whose calling and mission and purpose and vision was to be crucified for you. He did that so that you could see. He did that so you could have a vision. He did that so you could have a calling, a purpose, a life. I'd encourage you, listen to his calling. Because at the end of your death, those moments of death, I promise you, is always life. It's always your purpose. It's always your vision. It's always your abundance. You will not be cast to a cross and down into hell. Rather, you'll be brought up to heaven, be brought up to your full potential, your full purpose in life, and your full vision and mission and purpose in life. It's because of the cross that he gave that to you. I'd encourage you, as you move into this week of distractions, noise, social media, the election, all this stuff, try to find something more deep and meaningful. That is your calling. I'll see you in the next one.